Sometimes I'd stay after school to go to a ball game, and he would be standing on the corner watching for me because when I came into the store, that relieved him for a few hours.
We kept the store open 7 days a week, but Sunday was a short day because we'd close at 12 o'clock. My mother would fix a lunch, and we'd get into the family car and go to the beach.
Half a day on Sunday because everybody else was open.
They came from countries such as Russia, Hungary, Poland, and Latvia. 1.5 million Eastern European Jewish immigrants came to America between 1880 and 1924. They came to escape pogroms, the Tsar's army, and later revolution. Many came to Washington where they had relatives to help them. Sometimes Jewish community self-help groups assisted the new immigrants.
My mother met my father in New York, and I guess they were just going. They, had a few dates, and then my mother decided, or her family decided, that she was going to be coming here to Washington. She got on the train, and she was sitting there, and all of a sudden my father came along and sat down beside her, and she said, "Well, where are you going?" And he said, "Well, where you're going is where I'm going." She found it a little hard to explain to her family who he was.
So they took him in also, put him to work.
Before I left Chicago, I had a laundry route. I was a laundryman, and I used to make $55 a week. So I saved up some money, and I brought about $700-800 with me. So when we got married, naturally we had two brother-in-laws who were already in the business, and so part money. One brother-in-law gave some cash, and the other one signed in the bank, and that's how we got in. And the whole store was about $4,000.
Well, they weren't educated, so they had to learn someplace, so they started in a store. My mother used to learn how to spell off of cans.
My mother told me when I was an adult that when she first entered me in public school, I was 5 years old, I came home crying, and she asked me what was wrong, and I said in Yiddish, "Ich verstehe nicht, was sie reden dort." I don't understand what they're talking about. They were talking English in school. I had never heard English because my mother and father spoke Yiddish to us.
Some opened kosher markets, but most lived in neighborhoods that were not Jewish. While many kept kosher in their own kitchens, in the stores, they sold what their customers wanted.
They used to have pork, they used to have ham, rounds of beef, veal, all kind of sausages.
We had a candy counter that's a glass showcase that was about 4 feet long and about 2 feet high that contained penny candy. Must have been a variety of 30 different kind of candies. My job was to be behind the candy counter to wait on the kids as they came in with their pennies.
It could be just a penny sale or a 3-cent sale or a nickel sale. I believe in those years, the Milky Ways, I think were a nickel. Snicker bars a nickel. Mm-hmm. Hershey bars, 5 cents. And probably about the same size that is on the market today. It sells for an average of 50 cents.
The profits were small. You made a penny on a loaf of bread. By the time you put it in a paper bag, half of that profit was gone. It was a penny and a half on a quart of milk. It was all penny profit in a grocery store.
In those days, you waited on each individual customer. There was no such thing as self-service. Every time a lady would ask for a can of merchandise, you would she would have you'd go get a can of beans, and then you'd put it on the counter. And she said, now I forgot, I want a bottle of ketchup. And you'd go all the way out the end of the store to get her a bottle of ketchup. And that went on, and it was pretty exhausting.
%50 of the homes on that street were without electricity, and the people had little kerosene lamps, which they had to fill every day, and the grocery store sold that kerosene. They would come in with their glass lantern, and we would fill it for 2 cents, and that would give them light for that evening. I think one of the main reasons that those stores were able to exist was because the chain stores closed at 6 o'clock every day, and they kept closed on Sundays. By staying open till 10, 11 o'clock at night, the mom and pop store was able to do a little business with the people that didn't get home from work until 5, 6 o'clock. My father refused to close at night until he could see his competitors taking the lights off, knowing they were closed down.
I didn't have any vacations for the whole time. The only time in 8 years I went on a weekend trip by B&O to see my relatives in Chicago. The rest, it was a matter that I just kept working.
Their whole life was devoted to the little business and raising the family. We were open 7 days a week, and if things were quiet on the Sunday, Pop would close up perhaps around 1 or 2 o'clock and take the family down to this Haynes Point.
I'll describe you the conditions of living in a small corner store. You had the store and just the kitchen in the back. And when we came to that place, all we had heat for the upstairs was the stove that was in, coal stove or wood stove that was in the kitchen. And in order to get undressed, you had to have in the bathroom, you had a little gas stove to heat up the room, and then there was no heat in the house.
Well, the kitchen and the dining room were on the first floor, and the store was in front of the kitchen and dining room. And upstairs we had 3 bedrooms. But being a small family that time, we rented 2 of the bedrooms out for income. Starting in 1929 and through 1931, the height of the Depression took hold, and my father's business was affected by it because his customers weren't able to find work, and there was a lot of poverty. In order to survive, my father used to accommodate a lot of customers by charging their groceries.
You used to have a book for yourself and a book for the customer. And then you had to give them service. Of course, it wasn't self-service. And then you had to write in their book and then in your book, and then they would come in, around the 15th or the 1st and pay you. So you had to head up the book.
He bought a wagon and bought a horse, and he used to go to market with a horse and wagon.
He would go to the market and meet all his cronies who were also Jewish storekeepers, and it was sort of a meeting place to hang around, have a cup of coffee and a Kaiser roll in the little coffee shop there in the marketplace, and to socialize.
You had to go to the market, and then you'd come and be your butcher, and you had to be your purchaser and everything else. And of course, my wife was a big help. She learned how to cut meats even, and she worked with me.
I remember Mom running the store while Pop was in the marketplace. Once she got the kids off to school, at that time, she had an infant who was still in the crib, who she took care of. But Once we were off to school, she would be in the store to attend to the different drivers, the bread drivers, the milk drivers, the various soft drink drivers, and waiting on the customers at the same time. When we got back from school at 3 o'clock, we'd help out. We had to go to Hebrew school at 5 and spend an hour there every day in those days. And then we came back in the evening, we helped then.
I took care of my father's books. Neither my father or mother were educated. They couldn't read or write. You know, all my spare time, we'd be sitting in the back room doing homework, and there was a bell on the door. Somebody came in, and somebody sprang up to see, you know, a customer, what they wanted.
Along about 6 o'clock every morning, my father would start waking me up because he wanted me to deliver the customers their bread and milk, which had been left during the night before. Time he got through with delivering the bread and milk, they might call for a pound of bacon, and we'd have to hurry back.
I was always involved in the business. Even after I got married, and when I'd bring, like I brought the baby over, if a customer came in, I'd wait on them.
My favorite memories of the early days was the High Holy Days, and Passover particularly, because we'd all gather at my grandmother's home. My father would close for Rosh Hashanah, he'd close for 2 days, and close for Yom Kippur. My father was strict Orthodox.
In 1921, 12 grocers had formed a cooperative called the District Grocery Stores, or DGS. They could buy in larger volume from manufacturers and pass the savings on to the mom-and-pop stores. The DGS advertised for all their members, and they threatened to boycott food manufacturers who discriminated against Jews.
I got my second store was the DGS store, and it was a larger store. We had better quarters, and we had a couple of rooms besides the kitchen downstairs, and upstairs was plenty of room. It's we advanced. And then I wasn't open on Sundays, and I used to close 7 o'clock in the evening. I used to go in the mornings and pick up things from the DGS. At first, I was vice president, and I was in charge of the produce department and fish department. And of course, when I was president, you had to worry about everything.
The DGS also helped build a sense of community among the Jewish grocers.
Sometimes we would have Mayflower. We would have the members to come and have like a banquet, or have a dinner and have music, oh yes.
Herself the daughter of grocers, Mrs. Cohen went into a business with her husband that served the mom-and-pop stores.
Well, he sold butter and eggs and a little bit of cheese. We had a little truck, and he used to deliver to all the mom-and-pop stores. I was the bookkeeper. I always was the main bookkeeper.
When the nation went to war in 1941, sons donned uniforms. DGS members bought war bonds and served their customers as best they could.
Butter was hard to get. And, you know, we had food stamps in those days. And you had to have stamps for sugar, I think, and coffee. Certain items, you had to have stamps for it. And every once in a while, my husband would get in a tub of butter. It was loose, it wasn't packed. And we'd cut it up into quarters. And people would line up on the day we sold butter. They would line up the streets, just like you see the lines, people waiting to go into museums or things like that. They were lined up in front of our store.
Many things contributed to the decline of the Jewish mom-and-pop groceries. In 1933, after Prohibition, many grocers went into the more profitable liquor business. Later events in the city forced many to close their stores.
The worst part was when Martin Luther King was killed. We had riots, and so many stores, corner stores, were robbed and burned out, and some people just didn't want to go back into the business.
Some grocers followed their customers to the suburbs. In 1970, the DGS warehouse closed. Things had changed forever for the Jewish grocers.
That's it.
Ruth and Vivian Weinstein run one of the rare small Jewish groceries that survive in or near the city. But for most, the stores are just memories of long hours and hard work.
And after the grocery business and the life that I led there, anything else that I did was real pleasant or easy.
It was growing up hearing your parents complain about how their feet hurt them because they were constantly standing behind that counter.
And let's not kid ourselves. Even take today, the young people that are able to get education, they don't want to do what the parents used to do. And it makes a big difference.
Penny candy is gone, and the ring of the cash register is becoming a distant echo. But dreams were built on the penny candy cases, dreams of better lives for their children and future generations.